Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines where my guest is State Senator Dan Claitor. Dan's going to talk to us about the budget process. It took 4 sessions to get there. The fact that we have a $300 million surplus, first time in a long time. The ideas that they want to do for the upcoming year for infrastructure improvements. He's going to talk to us about the Justice Reinvestment Act, where monies were saved to the tune of $12 million and reinvested to help folks and victims and keep them out of jail. So join us on the next Legal Lines with State Senator Dan Claitor. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. First of all, I want to thank you for considering our firm for help in handling your legal matter. We know what we're doing. We've been around for a long time. We have over 60 years combined legal experience as lawyers. I've been practicing over 30 years, Sean over 25, and I have paralegals and legal secretaries who've worked for me for over 27 years. We've handled about every kind of case you can handle, and we've been very good at it. The bottom line is, it is our goal to be your protector when necessary, advisor, negotiator, and to successfully conclude the litigation for you in a way that is very favorable. Knowledge is power, and the folks who know what they're doing empower you. They enable you to make the right kind of decisions that best serves you. And that's our number one goal, frankly. Our number one ministry is to serve you. Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm pleased to have back on the show Dan Claitor. He is our state senator for District 16.
Great
Dan,
to be here.
It's great to have you back on.
Good to see you, Locke.
Let's do a little catching up. Usually we get together at least once a year, and last time we got together, a lot of things were happening. First, I know we were talking about it. There were 4 sessions to deal with the budget.
Right. My beard was black.
And so I told you, I think I read it 42 weeks out of the year in session, which has to be a historical record. But tell the folks kind of where we are. A lot of times we're $1 billion short and trying to figure out how to cover that expense without having the revenues. And so tell the folks where we are.
Well, we believe that we have a $300 million surplus. The Revenue Estimating Conference comes in and has a last say on that, and we'll know for sure if we're going to have any carryover when it comes June of next year. But we've done well as far as being able to cover that. Some folks would say we took too much, and others would say you didn't take enough. But that was part of the problem, in my view, with the special sessions coming before the regular session, in that the budget picture was not well enough in focus as far as I was concerned. And so we have a $300 million surplus. Is that by coming in too early? Well, we didn't do anything in those first 2 budgets other than spend some of the state's money. So we're in a good position, but we're not in such a good position that we're going to be able to take care of all of our infrastructure issues. But we've ignored infrastructure for quite some time, and that's a high priority, at least in the Baton Rouge area.
Dan, we've done this show over all the years, and usually, it's the same old kind of issue where you don't have enough revenues to cover the expenses, and this is unusual, and it's a great thing to hear. Explain to the folks why it is that there's a $300 million, because frankly, as I understand it, based on our conversations, it's because of taxes, Trump's tax cut.
Yeah, I say that. There's the penny issue that we talked about as far as your sales tax, but people didn't really factor into the equation that Trump's tax cut had the adverse effect in Louisiana if you were middle class or well-to-do, and that it created an additional Louisiana tax for you. And so the Louisiana coffers went up with the Trump tax, and of course that's made some people unhappy where they thought they got a break, and then the state of Louisiana takes it away from them in large part. But that's contributed quite a bit to helping us have the revenue that we need. Explain
to the folks the 1 cent part, because as I understand it, we had this 1 cent sales tax that had been going on, 10 years and was set to expire?
So the sales tax on the 1 penny was actually set to expire this past June, which it did. The question was, were we going to renew it, and to what extent were we going to renew it? There was a big fight over, should it be a penny, should it be a half penny? The Republicans in the House did a good job of digging in their heels and saying, hey, slow down before we get anywhere. and the compromise at the end of the day was 0.45%. And so
about a half penny then.
Correct.
Okay. And so is that now for another 10 years, or what's the length of time?
7.
7 years, okay. And so now everybody who's buying something in the state of Louisiana is paying a half-cent sales tax, which used to be a penny sales tax.
In addition to the others that they were paying.
Okay.
So the solution was originally a penny that was rolling off, and a lot of us thought that it was important that the one preceding it roll off before election time so that people could see whether or not we had solved anything. I'm term limited and I'll be gone, but others will be able to make a decision of whether or not we were good stewards of what was going on when they go into the voting booth and vote.
Makes sense. And I know, a lot of times the issue is, we're using one-time money, whether it was BP or the hurricane or, frankly, the flood issue. We had millions, if not, 1.6 billion come in to the state. Are we still kind of using that formula to budget ourselves, to meet the budget requirements?
Yeah, unfortunately, when you go back all the way to the Jindal administration, just before then, during the Blanco administration, Representative Stelly put a whole lot of work into putting together a plan.
I remember.
That would, he went all over the state and people bought into it, and that was going to take care of our fiscal issues. And then Katrina came along, and because of the huge boom that it created, it created a lot of unhappiness, but it also created a huge boom.
Economic stuff going on.
Yeah, at that point, I wasn't in the legislature, but they got rid of the income side of Stelly, and they didn't get rid of the giveaway side as far as some of the compromises that were made. But because of Katrina, we were able to do fine as far as that. And then BP money helped it as well. And so in a large part, the state of Louisiana was just like some of the people that we hear folks complain about. We were kind of a calamity and lawsuit happy type of state that was getting by on that type of thing on the state level. And now that those things have gone away, we have to deal with, we got rid of Stelly. And rather than resurrect Stelly, we went with the sales tax. And part of that is a lot of people say everybody pays a sales tax and we're all in that together. And then of course there are those that say, well, that's unfair to the people on the lower end of the spectrum that they would pay that. But at the end of the day, compromise was 0.45.
Okay. And so now we're paying for everything that we're spending, at least for the last year. We've got $300 million to deal with the expenses for the future.
Of a surplus. And that'll probably drop into the rainy day fund. Some of it as far as we have to backfill and things of that sort. So $300 million as far as infrastructure, there's not a whole lot that you can buy with that on a state of this size. Locally, our friends want to be able to get from home to work in a reasonable amount of time. I agree with that.
Amen, brother.
You ought to be able to do that. And so the question is it a bypass? Is it a loop? Do we add lanes? Well, the answer that we've settled on for the time being, which is not a complete answer, is to expand from the 10-12 split to the bridge. And we're making some serious headway there, and Representative Graves in Congress has done an excellent job.
Yeah, I did a show with Garrett just a few weeks ago, and he really has done a great job as our representative.
Yep, and he recognizes those issues, and so we've used a different type of financing device called these Garvey bonds, where we're essentially drawing on federal money a little bit early and monetizing it through a bond. But we hope that we'll see significant improvement with what's going to happen there. Your friends, my friends that live in the area of the Perkins Road overpass.
Not going to be happy, huh?
Not happy at all, but at the end of the day, what can we do as far as the inconvenience to a few folks, our friends included, and the improvements that we're going to have for everybody? It just outweighs it.
And so the bottom line is we got this wide traffic lanes, and all of a sudden we get to that area and it's a bottleneck, and it just messes. Doesn't matter how wide it is in the back behind you, it matters right there.
Yeah.
It's got to be fixed.
Got to be fixed.
All right, well, let's continue this discussion in the context of what additional infrastructure stuff would you like to focus on in the next, or the whole legislature focus on in the next segment. It's Locke, Meredith of Legal Lines. My guest, State Senator Dan Claitor. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. First of all, I want to thank you for considering our firm for help in handling your legal matter. We know what we're doing. We've been around for a long time. We have over 60 years combined legal experience as lawyers. I've been practicing over 30 years, Sean over 25, and I have paralegals and legal secretaries who've worked for me for over 27 years. We've handled about every kind of case you can handle, and we've been very good at it. The bottom line is, it is our goal to be your protector when necessary, advisor, negotiator, and to successfully conclude the litigation for you in a way that is very favorable. Knowledge is power, and the folks who know what they're doing empower you. They enable you to make the right kind of decisions that best serves you. And that's our number one goal, frankly. Our number one ministry is to serve you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Pleased to have back on the show our State Senator Dan Claitor. Dan, let's dive back in, kind of talking about the goals for infrastructure. You mentioned widening the area of I-10 at the Perkins overpass because it's a bottleneck, is the bottom line. Tell me about some other big projects that are kind of in the hope chest, so to speak.
Yeah, well, one of the big ones is, what are we going to do about getting over the bridge? Where the crash that we've had on the river at the Sunshine Bridge is pointing up the fact that we got to be able to get from the West Bank to the East Bank. And in Baton Rouge, when you're coming from across the river, these big plants that relocate and go down there toward Plaquemine, they want to be able to get their workers home, and they want to be able to get to the plant. We have serious problems with that. So there's big discussion about another bridge, and I think everybody agrees that we need another bridge, but where do we need it? Well, it tends to look like the proper place would be closer to Bruley and come out around the U Club, and then you would hit Nicholson and head in a New Orleans direction. One of the things that we don't talk enough about is, when you're coming from the west, is how do you get over the intercoastal? The intercoastal is a bottleneck there.
Oh, you're not kidding.
When the intercoastal bridge went out a while back, people were having to go all the way down to the Sunshine Bridge and come over. Now the Sunshine Bridge is out, and you're having to go to Veterans.
Moly. And, I hadn't thought about that.
So it's a serious problem.
Yeah.
But you got to get over the intercoastal canal, and it would be more sensible to do it further west, get over the intercoastal, go through that cheaper property in the back that is sugarcane and woods, and pop out around Bruley, and then you head south and make your loop that way. But I can't say that I can put my finger on the map where that'd be, but Senator Cortez and the Transportation Committee is doing a good job on bringing that, but that's a highly expensive thing. So
what is the estimate? Do we know?
Oh, it's, I mean,
$1 billion?
Oh, it's $1 billion to build that bridge that looks so pretty up in New Roads that 5 or 6 people go
Audubon
over.
Bridge, I think.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful bridge.
Yeah.
I loved riding it on my motorcycle.
Yeah, well, it ought to been in Baton Rouge, not up in New Roads, but that's where it is. And we can't afford it, frankly, and we need the government match from it as far as the feds do.
And tell some interesting bad facts about the match with the federal government versus state now.
Yeah, under the Trump administration, they want to see a bigger buy-in by the state. Instead of a 90-10 match, we're looking more at an 80-20 match, and we don't even know where that'll end up at the end of the day, but we're a state that is short-funded and not really able to do that. So one of the other options that we're looking at is, hey, somebody want to help us with a toll? We had toll bridges in New Orleans. It's a lot of other states. You go to Florida, they have toll bridges, and if you want to get in the fast lane, you can pay for it.
I'll tell you what, in Boston up north, they got toll bridges everywhere.
Well, they have them in Texas, and they have them in other places. And so if you want the fast track, perhaps that's the thing to do. And so I expect it'll ultimately be some version of public-private partnership to do that.
All right, well, excellent. So our ports, that's a huge issue. You know, you were mentioning transportation up and down the Mississippi River. Any infrastructure projects proposed for the Port of Baton Rouge?
Well, there's some discussion going on with the Port of Baton Rouge as far as them buddying with one of the local other ports, in that we don't need multiple ports, and there's always a little bit of power struggle on
Right.
who gets to be that, but it's important that we're able to move the things from the heartland out to China and Australia and all the other places that buy from us. When you go over the bridge and you look at those ships down below being loaded with grain on the left when you're going west, and with wood chips when you're going to the right, coal coming down the river to our coal plants and everything else. Louisiana is blessed with great geography,
Yep.
and so we have to be sure that we consider that and are good stewards of that.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the fact, because higher education and TOPS is a big deal to folks. How are we doing with TOPS?
So last time that we were here, I was bringing bad news that we weren't going to fully fund.
Yeah, I think it was 70%.
Yep, and this year it's fully funded. But this constant jerk on people's chain on whether we're going to fully fund it or not is a real issue.
Probably scares kids to go elsewhere, huh?
Oh, well, it seems to, and we lose great talent to Alabama and Ole Miss and other places.
Evil places.
and we have some serious discussions now about the admission standards on what's going on. But at the end of the day, you and I both know that our best investment is in our people.
Right.
And so.
And our children.
Yes. And we make a promise to them in the legislature that we're going to fund your higher education if you meet these benchmarks. We need to perform on that promise. Some folks have said we have to cap it because education's just running wild and we need more buy-in. But when you and I went to LSU, our first semester, I think, was 212, maybe?
I agreed. It was crazy.
Something.
And you got choir scholarships and stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And so we've got to follow through on our promise on that. But at the same time, when we make the standards appear to be pretty low for qualifying, I have found that if you tell children, hey, we're going to raise the standard, they clear the bar. You just got to give them enough time and be fair about it.
Give them a target to hit.
Yeah,
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, so I think everybody's committed to TOPS, but you'll continue to see movements to raise the bar for that lowest level, and you'll continue to see movements that say, we got to cap this. My friend Conrad Appel, that was chair of the Education Committee, one of the things he likes to holler about is, why are we giving money to movie stars on these movie credits when we can be spending money there? And so it's, what can we do on coming to an agreement on what our priorities are?
I understand the rub. Let's talk about health. I know, we've shut down the Earl K. Long charity system, and that's caused, at least for law enforcement in my conversations with them, a lot of stress on the whole criminal system.
Criminal system and the mental health side.
Right. So how are we dealing with the needs on the health side of this?
Yeah, and so just as a refresher, under the Jindal administration, we said no to Obamacare, and we said no to Obamacare, and we said no again, and we didn't accept it. Other states...
Now, have we now accepted it, right?
Governor John Bell Edwards, rather than asking the legislature to accept it, he could accept it with his pen, and so we're in it. And so we have a lot more insurance for people and a lot more people that are covered. The question is not whether we're in or out now, is how will we as a nation be able to continue to pay for that? In this last set of elections, we've heard people say, what are we going to do about the rising cost of health care? And it's going up, and it's going up. And in our state budget, that is the biggest part of our $30 billion budget. So we need to be good stewards of that and make sure that money's not being wasted. The Attorney General has brought bills to the legislature that I've helped them with so that we can fight and look for fraud. I'm not saying that it's rampant in everywhere, but every dollar is important.
And my recall was the reason Governor Jindal didn't want to participate, there was great concern that the proposed match between the state and the feds would change or end after a certain period of time, and we'd be stuck with a very high bill in the future.
And that will be the case.
That is going to happen. All right, that's not good news. All right, well, let's shift gears and now focus on some legislation that was passed. I think it was the judiciary and the reinvestment component of a really big bill that was passed, along with a couple other issues on the next segment. This is Locke, Meredith, Legal Lines. My special guest, State Senator Dan Claitor. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Locke, Meredith. First of all, I want to thank you for considering our firm for help in handling your legal matter. We know what we're doing. We've been around for a long time. We have over 60 years combined legal experience as lawyers. I've been practicing over 30 years, Sean over 25, and I have paralegals and legal secretaries who've worked for me for over 27 years. We've handled about every kind of case you can handle, and we've been very good at it. The bottom line is, it is our goal to be your protector when necessary, advisor, negotiator, and to successfully conclude the litigation for you in a way that is very favorable. Knowledge is power, and the folks who know what they're doing empower you. They enable you to make the right kind of decisions that best serves you. And that's our number one goal, frankly. Our number one ministry is to serve you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Having a great show with our State Senator Dan Claitor. Dan, let's dive back in. So we passed a big, what was it, justice reform?
Yeah.
Reinvestment?
Justice reinvestment.
Legislation last year. Bring the folks kind of up to speed on what was it supposed to accomplish, and at this point, roughly a year later, what has it accomplished? How are we doing?
So up until last year, the state of Louisiana was the highest incarcerator of people in the free world and the not free world. We were the highest incarcerator
in the world.
Yeah. And so one of the questions that I tried to ask and get answered is, how much justice can you afford? And that sounds a little bit odd, but with everything that we do in government, there's a cost associated with it.
And it's a huge cost with that.
It is. It's
housing
significant.
prisoners.
Our Department of Corrections budget is about $800 million. So we have, as we talked about in the last segment, healthcare. It's huge. And then we have higher ed and K through 12. It's big, very big. But then $800 million on the Department of Corrections. And so the question is, are we getting a return for our dollar that we spend on that? So it's the Justice Reinvestment Task Force. And we looked at what was going on, and Louisiana was incarcerating nonviolent offenders at a higher rate than anybody else.
Nonviolent, meaning what?
Well, somebody that's using drugs. In that there are different opinions on that, whether it's a character issue, an addiction issue, whatever the case may be. But putting them in prison for extended lengths of time
Wasn't fixing it.
Doesn't fix it. They come out and reoffend.
And probably learning some skills and creating relationships you wish they hadn't.
Correct. And then putting a thief, although I'd make you really mad that they're stealing from you, in prison for an exceptionally long time. But the question is, how long in prison does it take before you get a return on that punishment? I'm not saying people shouldn't be punished. They absolutely need to be held responsible for their actions, but we want a return on the punishment that's being meted out.
Well, and I would say we don't want them going back, which they were at a very high recidivism rate.
Yep, and it is high. There is a high recidivism.
And they were coming out having less skills, and they probably had at least less legal skills.
Right, they have more criminal skills when they come out.
And so this was to try and make them, I guess, capable of being productive citizens also.
Yeah, it was a holistic look at the whole thing, but if the fact of the matter is that we can incarcerate people for a shorter period of time and have better, higher quality supervision on the back end when they get out. I'm not saying open the gates and let them out. There's parole or probation, depending on the case, supervision on the back end. We can supervise somebody a heck of a lot cheaper than we can incarcerate them.
Because again, the expense was what, around $50,000 per year at least to house and feed a prisoner?
Well, you do the math on it, and it depends on where they go. And that's part of the question is, are we getting a return when we house state prisoners in local prisons? And what we were frankly doing by creating state prisoners in local prisons, sending them to Catahoula or wherever the case may be, we were really just creating jobs for the local economy in Catahoula for the sheriff there, and they were warehousing people. And I'm just using Catahoula as an example. Other places. In the regular DOC system, they're actually learning some skills, able to get a GED and things of that sort. And we weren't getting our return on the dollar. So more or less $52 to $60 a day in DOC, $28 a day in a local prison, with no return coming out of the local place. And so the idea being that we take the monies that we were able to save without any additional danger to the public as it relates to those and take those additional dollars and plow it back into the system on a 70-30 return. So
70% going towards
reinvestment, 30% of the savings going into the general fund and perhaps helping fund higher ed or perhaps doing something else. So this year, since we have 1 year to go to look at, we saved about $12 million. Of that $12 million, $750,000 came back here locally to victim services in East Baton Rouge.
$750,000.
Yeah, in the first year.
Well, I know they can use it.
I feel good about that.
Yeah, I think it's the Family Center or something that's dealing with domestic violence and such.
Yeah, no, so it's great that we're able to take that money from holding somebody in prison that we weren't getting a return on and spend it on a family. So that's the general concept of the rework on it. And we have a look back to make sure that we continue to follow it.
And what I read was that since the ratio is 70% of the 12 million, it was over I think it was $8.5 million was reinvested in all the various ways that the legislation had anticipated, which was, as you're mentioning, victim services and then educating and training and monitoring and preparing them to be productive folks in society, right?
Right. Instead of giving them $10 when they roll out of prison, help them to find a job.
So it makes sense so far anyway. It looks like the blueprint is coming to fruition.
Yeah, and it's what we weren't just making it up as we were going along. There were examples of it being successful in other states. And so I don't like reinventing the wheel. And so we followed some of the other models and we've made some progress with it. It's a human system. Are there going to be some mistakes? There are going to be some mistakes that come along the way, but we're doing everything that we can to make it as safe as possible. But you can pick out some instances where it didn't work out so well. But,
and as I understand it, we've lost our great recognition as being the highest incarcerator of human beings in the world. That honor's now gone to Oklahoma or somewhere.
Oklahoma,
right?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
That's a nice one not to be.
Right.
All right, well, tell me about your thoughts about the unanimous jury verdict. You were a prosecutor, and frankly, I was a little uncomfortable with it and read what you told the Senate in open kind of debate, and made sense, Dan.
Well, most people are surprised when they find out that we don't have unanimous jury verdicts in Louisiana. It's been passed by constitutional amendment, and we now do, and it'll be effective January 1st.
Of 19, right?
Right. It's not going to affect any of the prior convictions or anything of that sort. It's very forward-looking, but they do have a lot of people that are in prison on 10-2 verdicts, 11-1 verdicts. But my feeling on it is, would you be satisfied with your child or your wife or your neighbor being prosecuted and only 10 of 2 have to decide that they're guilty? We're in federal court, same crime, it would have to be 12 of 12. And so if
you're 48 other states.
Yeah. So truly, if you're a lover of liberty and you appreciate our traditions, you would demand that.
Well, Dan, there was an argument you made too that really struck me, and that is, look, the bottom line is I don't trust government to do everything correctly or fairly even. And the jury system is what our framers gave us as protection against the government coming after us.
Absolutely.
That's a great argument. And the other thing you pointed out is, as a prosecutor in New Orleans, you would raise the charges against a defendant to get access to the 10-2 jury verdict
as opposed
requirement.
To 6 out of 6.
And so I know it wasn't an abusive system. That was an option that was available. So it's very compelling arguments, and I assume we'll be able to talk about the new changes that are coming at us. Dan, it's been wonderful having you back on the show. This is Locke, Meredith Legal Lines. State Senator Dan Claitor, thank you for being with us.